I'm not the kind of woman who goes through her husband's things. I never needed to be, or at least, that's what I thought. But that afternoon, while I was organizing the hallway coat closet, always a minefield of old receipts, random keys, and baseball tickets from who knows when something slipped out. A Polaroid. It hit the floor as silently as a secret. I bent down and picked it up without thinking. But when the image began to develop, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a nostalgic photo, not the kind people keep tucked into books or memory boxes. No, this was the kind of photo that's taken in secrecy. Intimate, unforgivable. Two people, completely unclothed. The man was my husband Nathan, 39 years old, CEO of a rising fintech startup based in San Diego. I recognized him immediately. The shape of his shoulders, the faint scar near his collarbone, the birthmark on his back I'd kissed hundreds of times over our 8 years together. But what pulled the air from my lungs wasn't Nathan. It was her. Her face was turned, but the chestnut curls, the subtle tilt of her head, part shy, part bold, sparked something familiar. Too familiar. I stood frozen in the hallway, the photo trembling in my hand. The house, the one Nathan and I had repainted just last year, debating for hours over whether ocean smoke or sea glass gray looked better in the living room, now felt like it was closing in on me. The walls, the scent of lemon cleaner, even the sunlight through the windows, all fake, like props on a stage I never knew I was performing on. Then the front door opened. My heart leapt. Clara, I'm home. Nathan's voice echoed casually from the foyer, followed by the familiar jingle of keys hitting the ceramic bowl I'd made him in that pottery class he forgot to attend on my 36th birthday. I shoved the Polaroid into my back pocket, gave my face a quick pat to bring back some color, and walked downstairs like nothing had happened. Nathan was loosening his tie, smiling like always. I was thinking we could order sushi from your favorite place, he said. Add the spicy crab rolls? I nodded with a practiced smile. Sounds great. He kissed my forehead. His usual cologne lingered, but that night there was another scent too, one that didn't belong to me. That night, I lay awake beside him, watching. His breath steady, face relaxed, like nothing in the world was wrong. I didn't wake him, didn't ask questions, didn't throw accusations. Not yet, because I needed to be sure. I needed to know who she was. 3 weeks after I found that photo, I was no longer the Clara who made coffee for her husband every morning, no longer the wife who bought his explanations about late meetings and client calls. I became someone else entirely, someone who counted every step he took. I started with his phone. Nathan always placed it face down, something I used to think was charming now. It was a red flag. One Monday morning, while he showered, I picked it up and unlocked it with Face ID, something he never imagined I'd do. No obvious photos. But the call history? That told a different story. The same number kept appearing, never saved, never messaged through iMessage. Instead, he was using encrypted apps I hadn't even seen before. I checked his car next. A space I normally avoided because Nathan hated his things being moved. Inside the glove compartment, hidden under the lining, was a second phone, older, dusty, but charged enough to power on. The screen lit up. One message from Signal. Miss you already. Sunday dinner will be hard pretending again. I froze. That message wasn't just a breadcrumb, it was a boulder. Whoever she was, she would be at Sunday dinner, the one with our entire family. That meant the affair wasn't with a stranger. It was someone close. I started digging deeper, cross-referencing receipts, shared credit cards, calendar entries, Uber drop-offs. One evening, he claimed to be at a conference in Palm Springs, but the rideshare history showed a drop-off less than 3 miles from our home. A flower shop invoice came through our joint account. For her, she'll love these. The address matched a location I'd tracked via a spare AirTag I placed in his gym bag. Another lie. Another meeting. I thought infidelity would feel like a sharp stab, But Nathan's betrayal was slower, like a gas leak, invisible, odorless, deadly over time. Still, I hadn't confirmed her identity until I noticed something else in the messages. That trip to Mirror Lake, when we were little in Dad's red truck. Nathan didn't grow up in California. He grew up in Montana, moved to San Diego at 24. There were no Mirror Lake childhood trips, not with his family. So who had those memories? I retraced every woman who had ever been close to us. Friends, colleagues, neighbors. And then the realization slammed into me. Sunday dinner wasn't from his side, it was from mine. My parents, my brother, my extended family. And Eden, my cousin, 28, lived with us for a year after her parents' divorce. She'd moved back to San Diego for a fresh start last spring. Nathan had been oddly insistent we include her at every family gathering. I opened that message again. Can't wait for Sunday. Pretending gets harder each time. It wasn't a lie with a stranger. It was betrayal by two people I loved. That Sunday, I couldn't eat a single bite. Our monthly family dinner was hosted at my parents' house in Encinitas, the same home where we used to run through sprinklers as kids, roast marshmallows in the fire pit, and celebrate birthdays under the pergola with string lights. Everything looked the same, but I wasn't. I moved through the evening like a shadow, listening, observing, calculating. Nathan, of course, knew how to perform. He laughed at my dad's jokes, carried in dessert, asked my mom about her basil plant. He even offered to help clean up something he hadn't done in months. His eyes avoided mine just enough to seem natural, but they avoided someone else's more. Eden. She wore a soft emerald dress, chestnut curls falling in perfect waves, a flute of white wine in hand. She smiled like she was being photographed, polished, effortless, flawless. And then I saw it. That moment, Nathan's eyes dropped to her wrist, a silver bracelet, dainty, elegant, unmistakably new and familiar. I remembered it from a credit card alert last month. I'd asked him about the charge to a boutique I'd never heard of. He told me it was a business gift. It wasn't. Eden, as if sensing the gaze, tucked her wrist behind her back. She laughed lightly, her smile never breaking. My stomach didn't drop. No tears welled in my eyes. What I felt was something colder, steelier. After dinner, everyone gathered inside to watch the game. I excused myself, claiming I needed to touch up my makeup. I climbed the stairs to the guest bathroom, the one Eden had used earlier. Her beige purse rested on the sink. Unlocked. I didn't hesitate. I opened her phone. Same passcode she'd used in college. Her childhood cat's birthday, July 14th. The Signal app was right there. I tapped it open. Hundreds of messages, some simple, some so intimate they burned my fingertips. Nathan, I dreamed about you again. Woke up thinking you were still beside me. Eden, Sunday dinner, another performance. Nathan, I hate pretending, but we're close. Soon it's just us. Eden, she'll never understand. Clara's always been too emotional. I stared at the screen. The same woman I'd helped through a brutal breakup, who I'd supported when she dropped out of grad school, who lived under our roof for nearly a year when she had nowhere else to go. This was how she thanked me? I kept scrolling. Nathan, the apartment's perfect. I can picture you cooking in it. Eden, just one more week. I'll talk to her. She'll be fine eventually. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning a future while I was still sleeping next to him. While I was still paying bills, hosting dinners, pouring coffee. While I was still believing. I took screenshots of everything. Messages. Photos. Even GPS logs from their shared calendar. Their business dinners were at a short-term rental in North Park, a condo Nathan once claimed was too trendy for his taste. I closed the app and placed the phone back exactly where I found it. Downstairs, Eden smiled at me like nothing had changed. She wrapped her arm around my waist and whispered, "You've been so stressed lately. Promise me you'll take a break soon." I smiled back. "That's sweet of you." But inside, a single thought pulsed clearly. You stole everything from me and still have the nerve to act like nothing happened. From that night on, I became someone Nathan didn't recognize. I still smiled every morning, still brewed his favorite dark roast, still asked about his day. I played the doting wife perfectly, sweetly, effortlessly. Because if I was going to take down a man who had been acting for over a year, I had to outperform him. By day, I was Clara, warm, calm, composed. By night, I turned into something else. I started small, a microphone hidden in the reed diffuser on Nathan's desk, a discreet camera positioned among the bookshelves aimed directly at his so-called private corner, where he often made calls after I went to bed. When he left the house, I accessed his computer through a secondary Chrome profile he didn't realize was still synced to mine. I pulled emails, downloaded PDFs, tracked rentals tied to an alternate Gmail account. One of the documents was a lease agreement for a 2-bedroom condo in Mission Hills, signed by Nathan W. Cooper and co-signed by Eden A. Clark. They hadn't just fantasized about a life together. They were building one. And they planned to leave me behind like some used furniture they didn't want to move. But what they didn't know was this. I wasn't done yet. I backed everything up. Screenshots, contracts, messages, financial records. Stored them on a secure drive and hid it beneath the lining of my winter coat drawer, a drawer Nathan hadn't opened since we moved in. Then I hired a private investigator, a quiet, no-nonsense woman from Riverside. I gave her everything, their photos, office locations, past travel. Within a week, I had a 32-page report. Photos, time-stamped logs, witnesses, car tags. Nathan and Eden, together, kissing at red lights, exiting hotels, carrying groceries into the same rental apartment. But what tore at me most? They were together while I had been in Santa Barbara, caring for my mother after her surgery. 3 weeks. Gone. Trusted him with the house, the finances, everything. Eden had told me she was working abroad. Even sent photos from Amsterdam. I forwarded them to a friend, a travel photographer. Her response? "Clara, these are all stock photos. She's never been to Amsterdam." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I took a deep breath. And I started building the final act. Because betrayal like this deserved more than confrontation. It deserved a spotlight. I chose a Saturday evening. The weekend before Nathan was set to be announced as a new partner at his firm, a promotion he had bragged about for months. He said he wanted the whole family there to share the joy. So I gave him exactly what he asked for. I sent out invitations handwritten, elegant, invited both sides of the family, ordered fresh white orchids, my mother's favorite, booked a private chef to prepare a 6-course tasting menu, rented crystal glassware, dressed the dining room in candlelight. Even Nathan's parents were coming. And Eden, of course, RSVP'd immediately. "I can't wait," she texted. "You're always so thoughtful." I bet she thought it was about her. The day of the dinner, I wore a soft navy silk gown, tied my hair back simply, wore no jewelry, no perfume, just a calm expression and a steady pulse. I set the table, arranged the wine, adjusted the lighting, all while Nathan came up behind me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "You're amazing." I turned and smiled. "Anything for you." He smiled, touched. This is why I love you." I nodded gently, "And this is why you'll remember tonight forever." The guests began arriving just after 6 p.m. My parents, my brother and his wife, Nathan's colleagues, a few family friends. Eden was last. She arrived in a fitted black dress, lips painted a dark garnet, read too formal for family, but perfect if you believe the night was meant to celebrate you. She kissed my cheek. "You look stunning," she said, her gaze briefly flicking to Nathan. "You both do," I replied coolly. Everyone took their seats around the long oak dining table. Nathan stood and raised a glass. To Clara, who always brings us together. None of my success would mean anything without her beside me. He looked at me, beamed. I smiled and clinked my glass to his, never breaking eye contact with Eden. The courses came and went, scallops with citrus butter, seared duck over wild rice, petite crème brûlée. The mood was light, warm, full of laughter. Until dessert. I stood up, lifting my glass again. Before we end the night, I said gently, I thought it would be nice to share something special, a short tribute, to Nathan, for everything he's achieved. I picked up the remote. The TV screen on the far wall flickered to life. It began with photos of us on our wedding day, a video from our honeymoon in Belize, laughing at family dinners, birthday cakes, Nathan holding my niece in his lap. My mom wiped a tear from her eye. Nathan took my hand, clearly moved. Then I clicked the remote again. The next image. Nathan and Eden, arms wrapped around each other in front of the Mission Hills apartment. Murmurs erupted around the table. Another image. A signal message, time-stamped and clear. Pretending is getting harder. Just a few more weeks. Nathan. Another. The signed rental lease with both of their names. The silence was absolute. Even the clink of forks and spoons stopped. I walked slowly to the center of the room. I think it's time everyone here sees what's really been going on, I said. Nathan stood suddenly. Clara, what are you doing? I raised a hand. No, I'm done waiting. Done protecting people who think lies are a form of love. More images flashed. Bank transfers. GPS logs. A candid photo of Nathan brushing Eden's hair back in the car. Eden pushed back from her seat. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, I cut in. You never went to Amsterdam, Eden. Those pictures? They're stock images. While I was in Santa Barbara taking care of my mother after surgery, you were here sleeping in the apartment my husband rented with my money. My father turned to her, stunned. Is that true? She looked down, said nothing. And silence again said everything. But I wasn't finished. I reached into the sideboard and pulled out 2 envelopes. The first, I slid in front of Nathan. Divorce papers, I said evenly. If you sign them tonight, I won't forward evidence of your ethical violations to your company's board, and I won't release these images to the press. He stared at it, frozen. You really want to ruin me? I met his gaze, voice steady. I didn't ruin anything. You did that the moment you touched my cousin. Then I turned to Eden, laid the second envelope in front of her. A formal waiver of inheritance from our family estate, and a repayment demand for every dollar I supported you with over the last 6 years. Tuition, rent, therapy, that camera you said you needed to build your art career. Her voice shook. You're joking. I shook my head. No. And if you don't sign, every art gallery in California will get the screenshots of your messages. Eden reached for a pen. Her hand trembled as she signed. No one comforted her. My brother stood, looked at Nathan with open disgust. You had a family, man. You had all of us. And you turned this into the cheapest soap opera I've ever seen. Nathan bowed his head. Eden sat completely still. Tears pooled, but no one cared. I picked up both envelopes, slipped them into my leather bag, and turned to my family. I'm sorry this night turned out this way. My mother stood beside me, teary but strong. You don't owe anyone an apology, Clara. They do. My father added, family doesn't stab each other in the back. Eden tried to step toward me, but I backed away not in anger, but because the distance between us was now immeasurable. Nathan opened his mouth again. Save it, I said flatly. You'll need that speech for the legal meeting on Monday. Someone snorted softly. No one laughed, but everyone understood. No one said a word as the screen went dark. Only the soft flicker of candlelight reflected off untouched wine glasses. and the slow, anxious rise of breath around the table. Nathan sat back down, shoulders hunched, his fists clenched on his thighs, face hollow. The image of the composed, charming executive had crumbled entirely. Eden sat stiff, eyes downcast, as though staring at the hardwood might swallow her whole. I slowly walked back to my seat, the 2 signed envelopes now tucked neatly in my bag. I picked up my wine glass, took a calm sip, and said, "Thank you all for coming. I know it wasn't the joyful gathering you expected, but sometimes truth matters more than celebration." My father stood, his voice low but steady. "Clara, you don't owe us an apology. They owe you one." My mother reached for my hand, her grip trembling. "How long have you been carrying this alone?" she whispered. I looked at her, at the pain in her eyes, and for the first time that night, my voice broke slightly, because I didn't want anyone else to get hurt. My brother stood next, stepped around the table, and stopped right in front of Nathan. "You weren't just my sister's husband. I thought you were family." He paused. "But what you did, you don't come back from that." Nathan didn't say a word. He couldn't. Eden sat frozen, her hands folded tightly in her lap. No tears now, just silence, as though finally realizing the spotlight she used to bask in had become a heat lamp she couldn't hide beneath. I glanced around the room. No one looked at them. Everyone looked at me. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt right. After the guests left, some quietly, some still too stunned to speak, I locked the front door, walked up to our bedroom, and calmly removed the earrings I'd worn for the occasion. Nathan followed me upstairs. He stood in the doorway like a ghost, his voice strained. "I'll sign," he said. "But Clara, Stop," I said. "You'll need that explanation for your HR department." He blinked. "So, this is really it?" I turned to him. "This was over the moment you brought her into our house, Nathan. This is just the receipt." He left before sunrise the next morning. A week later, his firm conducted an internal ethics investigation after receiving anonymous evidence, emails, photos, transfers. He wasn't fired, but he was transferred quietly to their Boise branch. The public speaking gigs? Gone. The promotion? Canceled. The media training and press features that once made him look like a rising star? All scrubbed from the firm's website. As for Eden, she fled. Back to New York, this time for real. No exhibitions, no gallery events, just a 1-bedroom rental paid for with dwindling funds from the family trust she no longer had access to. She sent me 3 letters over the next month. The first was defensive, claiming she was overwhelmed by pressure. The second was 5 pages of apologies, rationalizations, and regret. The third was barely a paragraph. "I wish I could go back. I understand if you can't forgive me." I kept all 3 in a drawer I rarely open. Not because I need to reread them, but because they remind me how far I've come. The house was sold within a month. The real estate agent, a friend of my brother's, said the new owners were a young couple, recently married, with a baby on the way. I wished them peace. I didn't want to stay in a space filled with lies and ghosted promises. I moved into a 5th-floor apartment in Hillcrest, overlooking Balboa Park. It's smaller, quieter, but it's mine. Every plant, every framed photo, every color on the wall chosen by me, for me. I painted the living room a muted olive green, a color Nathan once called dreary and flat. Now it glows softly with the afternoon sun. I hung my sketches above the couch, the ones I used to keep in drawers. Now I let them breathe just like I finally could. I live alone, but I am not lonely. My work at the architecture firm has flourished. After closing a major deal with a commercial project in Phoenix, I was offered a lead role on the next big urban design initiative. A role I once turned down for the sake of the marriage. Now, I don't say no to opportunities that honor who I am. I don't say no to myself anymore. One afternoon, my mother and I sat at a cafe near my new place. She stirred her tea slowly, looking at me. Then she said, "I'm sorry I didn't see how much you were going through. But Clara, you're the strongest woman in this family." I didn't respond right away. I just smiled, quietly. Because I had learned something deeply important not from the betrayal, but from what I did after it. Strength doesn't always come from raising your voice. Sometimes, it's staying silent long enough to gather truth, then rising with it in your hands. They thought I would break. But I didn't. I didn't scream. I didn't lash out. I simply let their lies unravel, piece by piece, until all that remained was me clear, calm, and more myself than I had ever been. 1 year later, my life looked nothing like it used to. And for the first time, that was a good thing. I lived in a bright fifth-floor apartment overlooking Balboa Park. Every morning, soft light filtered in through sheer curtains, catching the corners of my framed sketches and the lavender plant I'd grown on the balcony. I woke when I wanted, drank coffee without brewing a second cup for someone else, played music that I loved, not playlists curated to keep someone else relaxed. The woman I used to be the one who bent her schedule around someone else's needs, who apologized for asking too many questions, who poured coffee while her husband plotted his exit, was gone. She didn't disappear. She evolved. I kept my focus on work. The commercial design contract in Phoenix became a turning point for my career. I was asked to lead the next sustainable housing initiative. The role came with a team, a travel stipend, and full creative freedom. It also came with something I hadn't felt in years: trust in my own judgment. Every design I sketched, every client meeting I led, every blueprint I refined, it felt like I was finally honoring the voice inside me that had been ignored for too long. I no longer hesitated. I no longer second-guessed. I didn't run decisions by anyone but myself. Nathan never came back to San Diego. After his firm's internal review, he was quietly relocated to their Boise branch, far from the clients who once praised him, and even farther from the people who once trusted him. No press releases. No social media updates. No buzz. He faded, just like the illusion of the life we had once shared. He emailed me once a long, rambling message full of half-explanations, apologies, and regret. I never opened it. Some doors don't deserve to be reopened, even to peek. Eden, too, disappeared from our lives. After returning to New York, she tried rebuilding her art career, but the damage was done. Her name was quietly removed from exhibition rosters. Invitations dried up. A few whispered emails from gallery curators confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't blacklisted. She was simply forgotten. She sent 3 handwritten letters. The first blamed the pressure of family expectations. The second was 5 pages long, full of remorse and what-ifs. The third was short. "I wish I could go back. I understand if you never forgive me." I kept all 3 in the bottom drawer of my desk, not as mementos, but as markers, proof that I had walked through fire and kept walking. Some days, small memories still surfaced. A certain kind of wine in the grocery aisle, a song from one of our old road trips, a scent in the elevator that reminded me of his cologne. But instead of pain, what I felt was distance, the kind that says, "You're not there anymore." I had climbed out of the wreckage and built something stronger on top of it. One night, while having dinner with my parents at a small seafood spot near the coast, my mother reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. She said, "You didn't just survive, Clara. You transformed." I smiled, not out of pride, but out of something quieter, like peace. Because I had. Not out of spite. Not to prove anyone wrong, but because I deserved to live a life that was honest, whole, free. I still believe in love, but not the kind that demands silence, or asks you to look away, or withholds the truth in the name of peace. I believe in love that stands beside you, not one that hides behind you. And until I find that, I'm okay being alone. Not lonely, just whole. I painted my bedroom in a color Nathan once called depressing, a deep green, earthy and grounding. I hung my own drawings on the wall. I adopted a rescue dog, a quiet golden retriever named Lou, who loves naps and doesn't mind my endless podcasts. Every weekend, I sketch in the park, take long walks, try new coffee shops, and write in a journal I once forgot I owned. I'm not rebuilding anymore. I've rebuilt. And I'm thriving. I once believed betrayal would destroy me. Now I know better. It doesn't break you. It reveals you. Who you are when no one is clapping, when love is counterfeit, when silence screams louder than words, that's who you truly are. And the truth is, I'm not broken. I'm brilliantly whole. These days, I live slowly, deliberately. My mornings start with lemon water and sunlight pouring through my kitchen windows. I tend to my lavender plant and hum along to the quiet buzz of the city waking up. There are no footsteps upstairs, no phone calls that demand I pretend, no shadows lurking in the corners of my home. Just me. And it's enough. I still walk past the old bookstore Nathan and I used to visit. Sometimes, I glance at the window display, remember the time we bought matching journals we never wrote in. Now I write every day. One sentence in my journal, every morning. What am I reclaiming today? Some days the answer is peace. Other days, permission. Sometimes it's simply me. The first time I passed Eden's old gallery, the one she once said would make her the name in West Coast art, the windows were bare. A handwritten sign hung inside. Studio space available. Inquire within. I didn't smile. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt nothing. Because that chapter was finished. Closed. Archived. Sealed. And I was already several volumes ahead in my own story. Once, while waiting for a lift, I saw a woman crying in the back seat of a parked car. Silent, red-eyed, trying not to be seen. I saw myself in her. And in that moment, I wanted to reach out, to say, you'll survive. Not because you have to, but because one day you'll want more than survival, and you'll create it with your own hands. I didn't speak to her, but I left a note on her window. It said, he doesn't define you. You do. See. Then I walked away. Because what I've learned, what I now live, is this. You don't have to destroy someone to rise. You don't need revenge to find peace. You don't need their apology to write your closure. All you need is truth. And the courage to stand in it even when your knees shake. Even when the voice in your head says, you can't. Even when the world wants you to stay quiet. They called me emotional, oversensitive, too invested, too intense. But you know what? That sensitivity saved me. That intensity helped me see the cracks. And that so-called weakness became the very strength that brought it all down. Not with fire, but with focus. If I ever see Nathan again in a grocery store, a cafe, a meeting, I won't look away. I won't flinch, because I know something he doesn't. He needed lies to feel strong. I found strength in the truth. I'm not angry anymore. Not at him. Not at her. Not at myself. Especially not at myself. I forgive the Clara who hesitated, who doubted, who poured coffee and tucked away her voice. Because she was surviving. And because she eventually rose. And chose herself. This weekend, I'm driving to Sedona with friends, real ones, the kind who know the whole story and stayed anyway, not out of pity, but out of respect. We'll hike red rocks, watch the sky shift into desert gold, and toast to second chances, the kind you give yourself. Not granted, not borrowed, earned. So if you're reading this, or listening to this, or quietly sitting in your own kitchen wondering what happens after heartbreak, here's what I'll tell you. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to burn bridges to walk away. You don't have to get even to get free. All you have to do is remember, your worth is not up for debate. And no one, not a lover, not a cousin, not a betrayal wrapped in polite smiles, gets to rewrite your story but you. What do you think of Clara's story? Would you have handled it the same way or differently? Share your thoughts below. And if you've ever reclaimed yourself after betrayal, we want to hear your story too. Subscribe for more stories about power, heartbreak, and healing, where silence becomes strength and endings become beginnings.